Sick. All right, man. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, glad to have you on. It's rare that I have someone on who I've like never met or never talked to before, so this is exciting. It's always basically the way this came about is I hit up whatever company it is, I can't remember, but I basically hit him up being like, because me and Apache like met a long time ago, and I guess he was working with this PR company for a while. So I hit him up being like, hey, is Apache like still interested in the podcast? And they were like, oh, we don't work with him anymore, but we have all these other artists. Do you want to chat with them? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not?
Hell yeah, man.
So
yeah, it's an honor to be here, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So honestly, like I don't really know a lot about you or your or anything. So yeah, I mean, maybe like tell us a bit about who you are, and maybe that could spawn some interesting conversation off that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I go by Mikrodot, and I've been creating mostly deep dubstep or 140 for about 10 years now, I would say. And I've been playing live shows for about 8 years, and mostly self-taught, really, as far as electronic music goes. But I kind of started out my music endeavors playing the violin, so I'm a classically trained violinist. And I started teaching when I was around, I want to say 14 or 15. It was actually my first job. I was teaching basic violin skills, mostly to kids. And I still teach to this day, but not violin. I kind of made the shift towards electronic music at a certain point. Although I took the violin really seriously, even throughout like some of the college years, and kind of just decided I wanted to focus on dubstep at a certain point, and I've been kind of doing it ever since. And I still teach, but just over Zoom, like Ableton related stuff. I've been using Ableton for around 3 years now, and before that, I was on FL Studio. And I love Ableton's workflow quite a bit more. There was just a certain point when FL just did not work for me at all anymore. So yeah, I made the switch, and I'm not looking back. So yeah, I love Ableton. I know that there's a ton for me to learn still, but I do still feel like I have a lot to offer people. And yeah, that's about, I don't know, the the synopsis of my musical endeavors, I guess.
So how do you get from classical music to deep dubstep? Because like I don't really know a ton about classical music, but from what I do know, it's mostly about like learning pieces that were created a few hundred years ago and then basically like playing them back perfectly or interpreting them in your own way based on like how you think the composer, what they meant by writing down the sheet music or whatever. And to me, there's almost like no vibe in classical music. It's like a almost completely technical endeavor where you're basically trying to just like replicate a thing in your, well, a bit of vibe, like a bit of interpretation with the reading of the sheet music and stuff like that, versus deep dubstep, which is just all vibe. And like it's almost like not worrying about the technical too much, and basically just trying to curate this like kind of sort of eerie or sort of underground type vibe to it. So how did you get from like that one practice, which you may not think about classical music in the same way, to deep dubstep, which also you may not think about as the same as I do?
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think that was kind of the allure of it to me, was just to break out of that super, like, I don't know, focusing on, the techniques of things and playing them perfectly, as you said, and into something where I felt like I could be a little bit more creative, and especially writing my own music. I got kind of tired of, performing other people's music. And I really started to want to compose my own stuff from a really young age. I really started messing around with FL Studio in like middle school. And it was because I wanted to make original beats to rap over, actually, which is funny now because I can't rap like at all anymore. But yeah, man, it was definitely like a it's different for sure. But I think that once I heard dubstep for the first time, even while I was playing the violin, like in high school, this must have been in like 2006, it really just kind of had this vibe that just really spoke to me. And I started to be like a listener for the longest time, and eventually I kind of was like, yeah, this is kind of really what I want to do. And I think honestly, what a lot of what inspired me, or what kind of clicked when I heard dubstep for the first time, was that it kind of reminded me of a lot of the video games that I used to play when I was a kid. Like the first thing that comes to mind is Mortal Kombat, which is one of my absolute favorite games. And I just think that that darker sort of vibe in music, it really was appealing to me as well. I would consider myself, a little bit more of like a darker soul, I guess. And that's actually another video game franchise that I love to play is Dark Souls. But basically, yeah, man, it is different. But I think mostly it was just the ability to want to compose my own music that kind of moved me away from classical and just like this absolute perfection sort of a thing. It got old to me, and I wanted to be able to kind of do my own thing and be creative to the best of my ability.
Yeah. So do you find these days when making deep dubstep that there's like any parallel or like any of the skills that you learned from classical music that gets injected into it, or is it kind of just a completely different practice and a whole different thing?
So I would say that although music theory is definitely is useful in composition of any kind of music, including electronic music, it's of course not needed. And I find myself even these days less and less kind of looking towards these things that I learned music theory wise. But and again, not to say that it's not helpful. I've developed an ear for knowing right away when something is in key or not. And I feel like a good friend of mine, Chief Kaya, he also creates amazing tunes. And he had mentioned to me one time when we were sitting down for a collab, like that he had to almost do mathematics in order to figure out the key that certain sounds were in order to get them to mesh, where I was just able to hear it. And I think that his way of doing it is incredible, that he can essentially figure it out just by doing some basic math. But for me, it's just kind of integrated into my being at this point to know if something's in key or not. And that's really like what I think is the most helpful from what I've learned, just in school and, just from playing the violin, is just having that integrated ability to know what key you're in, and be able to, get samples in key and stuff like that. One of the biggest, I would say, challenges sometimes would be getting that marriage between kick and sub down. I mean, it's almost always something is wrong. It seems like to me, like it's either out of phase or it's difficult to figure out the key, and that marriage is so important, especially in bass music. And I find myself being able to pretty quickly like figure it out. Thankfully, where I feel like some other producers may have some challenges with that.
Well, I think like humans in general have challenges with that regardless of like how good your music theory is, because at frequencies that low, your ear just gets a little bit confused, I think, which is why metering is obviously important.
Yeah, Spectrum is great too, and in Ableton for that.
Yeah, my trick for that always with sub is I have to pitch it up an octave to be able to hear what it's actually doing a lot of the time, and then I can pitch it back down and go like, all right, I know that's in key, even though like sometimes at those low frequencies, due to like room modes and everything, it can sometimes sound a little confusing, and especially in headphones, because you're really just hearing like the upper harmonics of it, and if those upper harmonics come from something that has odd odd harmonics, like a saw or a square wave or whatever, sometimes it can kind of confuse your ear, I think, especially when you put a filter on it, which then creates like a phase shift. And
right, for sure.
Cool. So you don't play violin at all anymore? It's just electronic music only?
It's like once in a blue moon I'll pick it up. I still have one. I still have all the sheet music, but yeah, I really did devote myself fully to just composition and of electronic music. I just feel like that's really where my heart and soul is at this time. And I'm sure maybe later on in life, once I get older, or maybe I'll get bored of electronic music someday, maybe I'll pick it up and start to focus on it a little bit more. But yeah, I got to be honest, it's pretty rare for me to play it these days.
True. So what are your goals right now for electronic music? Like, what are you kind of trying to work towards?
So right now, I would say that finding a good manager would be like a great goal. That's what we've been doing for a while. My agent and I, just trying to seek out the absolute best manager. I mean, I can't stress enough the importance of like a good agent and and manager. I mean, it's almost having someone who really cares about your project and has a vision and direction for it is going to ultimately help the artist so much. And I'm just so thankful to have an agent who really cares so much about the project and is putting so much into it to assist me in moving things forward. And a manager would be a really awesome thing who has more experience in marketing and just things like that. So that's a major goal of mine. The next thing is just kind of continuing to put myself out there and kind of just recognizing my brand as a business, which took a really long time for me to kind of accept that, because, you know, as a creative or like an artist, you know, you want to just be able to focus on the art. And I think that it can be, it can feel difficult sometimes to recognize the business aspect of it. So, but that's what I've been doing. I think I finally have found a balance between the two. And that being said, I just am investing in the project, investing in myself, continuing to invest in my equipment and, you know, my studio. And that, yeah, that's another one of the goals for me as well, is just continuing to upgrade certain things in my studio, continue to get better soundproofing, and really dial in my mixes, because I'm starting to hear mixes that are just like absolutely insane from artists in 140, and it just has made me question everything that I'm doing recently, like everything.
Who's an example of someone with insane mixes at 140?
I would say Hamdi.
Okay.
And he's really blown up recently. Skrillex played one of his tunes, or maybe even multiple, in his like basement mix, which was super dope mix, and just absolutely incredible the way that certain things are standing out. To me, it almost just sounds like everything is clipped to a certain extent, and it's just everything is big and like has its own place in the mix. And I feel like I'm pretty good at, you know, filling out dead space and mixes and stuff like that, but yeah, but this is healthy. I think this is healthy to get to a point of questioning everything within production or your mixes or mastering, because to me that is gonna, you know, bring your music to a whole next level. And just knowing that also, like on a level of, I don't know, I guess like the ego, just knowing that nothing that we do is ever perfect, and there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think no matter how much I learn about music and stuff, there's never a point at which I'm like, all right, my mixes are perfect and I've got no more learning to do. It's the goalpost is constantly moving. Whereas if you showed my mixes now to like me 10 years ago, I'd be like, that's insane. Like how that's like more than I could ever hope to probably get to with a mix done. But interesting that you say Hamdi, because it's not like, I like his shit. I think it's great. But definitely the mix down is not what stands out to me there. It's more the songwriting, I would say, that stands out. It's like a very, very simple idea. And honestly, I think if you get your songwriting nailed, the mix down kind of just falls into place. Like, for instance, you were saying about keys and stuff out of phase and all of that stuff. Well, if everything's in key, nothing is going to be out of phase generally, because basically phase is like a time difference of something, and time differences a lot of the time happen due to differences in frequency. You know, like if you have a kick that is in C and you're trying to put it over a bass that's in C sharp, the kick will be, you know, in C will be happening slightly slower than the one in C sharp, and therefore there'll be like this shift at some point where one goes out of time with the other on this like micro level. And that, you could look at that as an engineering thing, but I personally look at that as a songwriting thing. And I feel like if you get all those things right, then the mix just is perfect. Like I got this buddy, you might know, do you know AU5?
No, I don't.
He's a dubstep producer, and he has perfect pitch, and he's also like just a god tier engineer, and he's somehow like bridged the gap between having perfect pitch and like good musical ideas with mix downs and production. And it's really interesting. Like he can kind of hear something and just be like, oh, that like has a harmonic that's in C sharp, but the song is in this, and therefore that's going to create some dissonance. And then either just remove that C sharp with an EQ or pick a different sample that doesn't have that or something. And Yeah, I worked with him once on an EP, and it was just crazy, like working with him because whenever there was a problem, like he was able to just identify it so quickly and fix it. And he'd just like make one movement, like pull a thing out, and then bam, it's like perfect. And I was like, what the hell? That thing, like that thing that sounded like slightly wrong, I would have thought about for like a week, and like
Right.
had so much trouble trying to figure out what was wrong with it. And he just figures it out instantly, which is really cool. And I love his music too, and perhaps as a result of that, I feel like his stuff can sometimes feel like a little bit too perfect. Like
For sure.
sometimes I think you gotta embrace some of those like weird quirks about stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, man.
yeah, so it sounds like a lot of your goals at the moment, not so much music related, but like administrative, right? Like finding a manager, upgrading gear, stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say so, but also, considering just I don't know what I'm going through with mixing right now. I think that also, like that's another thing I really want to focus on as well is kind of figuring out like what people are doing to get it so loud and so clean at the same time, and also I guess that's gonna probably affect my the way I master things as well, because if you start to mix things differently, there's most likely going to be some different mastering process is happening as well. And something that you had mentioned that I find really important. I just can't stress the fact enough that sometimes you have to use a different sample. You had mentioned that sometimes you have to switch out a sample, and I feel like it's important to not get too invested in the samples that you use, because sometimes you do just kind of have to switch it out and use an entirely different one, and it could sound even better than the one that you had in there, and just in terms of getting things to sound cohesive and the mix to sit right, so that's just something that stood out to me. And also, by the way, I don't think that I have perfect pitch by any means. Like it sounds like your friend does. Like that it sounds like he's like on a whole different level than I am. But it's obviously a skill I have to be able to pick things out. Just based on having a trained ear over the years. But I don't think I necessarily have perfect pitch where I could be like, oh yeah, that's like C sharp or whatever, and it needs to be C. It's more just like, okay, I can tell that something's a little bit off.
Yeah, going back to switching out samples, I listened to an interview recently with Fred again, and he was talking with Jamie Liddell on the Audio Files podcast, and he said, "Oh, I was in the studio. I can't remember who it was that he was making a beat with, but they were like this massive beat producer. They'd make stuff for like Drake and stuff, like the biggest shit, basically." And he was like, "I didn't see him touch an EQ or a compressor once. Like basically all he did is like he'd put a beat together, and if it wasn't sounding right, he'd just change the sample, and he would just keep doing that until it all sat right." And he was like, and he didn't do shit. Like he maybe put a limiter on the master and that's it, but he didn't touch a single EQ, single compressor. He just literally was like switching out samples. And yeah, and that definitely like kind of rung a bell with me for sure. But going back to the business thing, I definitely agree that like at some point you kind of have to see your art project as a business if you want to do art as your like full-time thing. And a lot of people I think are like very resistant to this and don't want to do it because they think like it like reduces the integrity of them as an artist or something like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're choosing to be an artist, there's like many facets to the job, and making the art is just like one facet. You've also got to be good at like delegating work to other people for stuff like social media and marketing and all of this kind of stuff and whatnot. And to some degree, everyone does this. Like, for instance, if you're not the promoter on all of your shows, you're delegating one part of like the branding and marketing to somebody else, a promoter, right? Whether you choose to recognize it or not. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've had this issue as well before where I've been like, no, man, art. And like, I just want to do art. But I think the difference between people who are like massive and people who are not is they work really fucking hard. Like I got a few friends who are really, really big and they just work harder than anyone I've ever seen. Like Deadmau5, for instance, I went to his house and just I did not see him stop working basically the entire time. And they're really good at switching between like being an artist and being a business person. It's like they're almost both at once all the time. And I personally find it hard to be in both minds at once, to be thinking about business while I'm making art. Like I feel like I have to sort of separate them, but they just seem to have this switch where they can just go between it, which I find really impressive.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think it's kind of a one thing or the other. For me, there's just no way I can be focusing on business while creating art. I think that that would probably pull, the wrong sort of inspirations in, and I'd probably create music that wouldn't be me. And I'm not. Would I love to be able to buy a house with my music someday? Absolutely, but I don't want that to be like my main motivation for creating, because I think that that would put it in a direction that just wouldn't be me anymore.
Yeah, true. So is the reason why you think that because you think that you would make art that would be like more fake or something like that, or like what's your thought process behind that?
I guess to me, it's like a lot of the music that seems to generate a lot of money is just music that wouldn't come from my heart and soul. And I'm not to say that someday maybe I won't vibe with, certain sounds more, but a lot of the stuff that I make, at least currently, some of it's heavier, some of it's more chill and vibey, but I just feel like deep dubstep and like 140 as a whole is, mostly still pretty much underground. And um, not to say that there aren't some artists that have made it past, the underground, which there are, definitely quite a few who have, but I just personally think that, you know, in order to get to that point someday with being able to be as successful as I want to be, I want to just be able to do it with my own genuine art and not kind of push myself in a direction that I think people want to hear.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sort of like torn on this. Like, I don't, so the stuff that gets really big, I think about it a lot, and I'm like, I have a few questions about it. The first question I have about stuff that gets really big is it like quote unquote better than stuff that doesn't get really big? And there's an almost objective argument that it is better, I think, by saying that like the biggest value of art, I think, in my opinion, is that it brings people happiness. And if you make a song that gets 600 million plays on Spotify, and even only 10% of those people like get true happiness out of that song, that's still like 60 million people that you brought true happiness to. Versus like if you make something that's like from your pure integrity art state that gets like 100,000 plays and probably still only 10% of those people actually experience true happiness from it, then it's like 10,000 people versus 60 million.
Yeah, that is a good point, but I guess at the same time, I do wonder like how did that make you feel creating it though? I guess seeing 60 million people or whatever that love your song, that would be a great feeling. But what was the feeling while you were creating it?
So I don't necessarily think stuff that gets big got big because the person making it hated it. I think it's just this lucky thing that happens. Like obviously there's some people who make music purely from the get-go. They're like, I'm trying to make this a pop song that gets huge. But I think the stuff that gets like ultra huge is because the person making it loved it, and somehow their vision of what they love doing somehow aligned with the masses vision of what they love hearing, and it just like came together.
I love that, man. I hope that I'd create something like that for sure, multiple times, hopefully. That
Yeah, that's
it's just
kind of
perfect.
Yeah, that's generally how I feel when I'm making music. I've made music before in the past where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make something and I'm gonna try to make it like be like more poppy sounding, and hopefully it'll get more plays than my other shit. And it never really does. And then every now and then I just make something. I have a great time while making it, and then I put it out, and it somehow gets a million plays. And I'm like, well, why did that happen? And I have no idea. And my
Right.
theory is that it's just, I just got lucky basically with like the thing that I enjoyed at the time and the thing that people enjoyed at the time. It came out at the right time on the right day and just like all gelled properly and stuff. I don't know if there's any formula to it though. Then again, you've got people like Max Martin who somehow are able to pump out like number one pop hits over and over and over again. And I
Right.
listened to an interview with him the other day, and he said the way he writes lyrics is he just like kind of hums and makes like formant sounds. He just goes na 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 na, and then he just like doesn't even give a shit what the words are. Like English is not even his first language; he's Swedish. And then he just like goes, all right, that melody with those kind of like articulations and formants with the voice sound interesting. Now let's just find words to fill those up. Doesn't even matter if it makes sense.
That's an incredible way of making music, man. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's kind of interesting. And he just like he wrote, like Britney Spears Toxic. He wrote like, hey, let me pull this shit up. He's like the pop guy, like the guy who's basically music you've heard for your entire life and probably haven't realized. Let's see. Yeah, he did a bunch of Britney Spears stuff, a bunch of Pink stuff, Usher, Avril Lavigne, Katy Perry, Christina Aguilera, Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, The Weeknd, Coldplay, like everything. It's insane.
Wow.
And this, yeah, it's like, how the fuck, like, does this dude in his one brain make just shit over and over and over again that just hits number one?
It makes sense though, because I do feel like obviously the voice is it's an instrument, and it does make sense that the lyrics themselves are secondary to just the the tonality of it, the key that it's in, just the melody. I mean, that's really cool though. It's just not something I would have ever thought to do. So that's pretty
Yeah,
sweet.
it's like, well, how often do you listen to a pop song and you sit down and go like, what does this really mean? Like,
yeah, man, like so many times.
It's like, yeah, you don't, well, I don't personally. Like, I literally just hear it and go like, oh, this sounds cool. It sounds pleasing to the ear. It makes me not think, which is kind of like,
Right,
thinking too much is sort of a pain in the ass.
No, I just mean I'm not like analyzing the lyrics necessarily, like on popular songs,
Yeah,
But,
exactly. And I don't think anyone is, which is like, and this might be maybe the reason why is because there is not a lot to analyze there. It's literally just like random words applied to like some random melody.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, that guy's pretty interesting. What else? What are you doing today?
Shit, man. Wife is out of the house mostly for this interview, but she's getting some stuff done. My son is with her, and I'm just doing this today and hopefully working on some music as well. And I actually have some collabs going on with a guy I'm going on tour with soon. So that's probably going to be the main priority. But
oh, cool. Who's the person that you're going on tour with?
Salty.
Oh, I know Salty. Brett?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he lives pretty close to me actually here in Atlanta.
No shit.
Yeah, I played a couple of shows with him. I played one with him in Woodstock recently, Illinois. Oh no, sorry, Peoria, Illinois.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he's the coolest fucking dude. I love him.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I chatted with him in a car for like an hour. Do you know what cities you're hitting yet, or is that sort of all yet to be booked?
So there is some stuff that's been locked in. I don't know too much about it yet. I haven't really bugged my agent too much, but I do know that there's like 4 stops in Florida and 4 stops in Tennessee. So there's definitely some actual tour kind of stuff happening, which I'm excited about. I love doing that. I think that's going to be kind of the main focus instead of doing, I don't know, my agent refers to them as like one-off shows, I guess, which are, always fun to play still. But I think that kind of touring is really the way to go, especially with like having a family. It's just a little bit easier, I guess, to know when I'm going to be gone and kind of plan for stuff a little bit better. And not that you can't do that with one-off shows, but I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be kind of easier for me to plan my life out and I guess know that certain income is coming in too, because it's obviously it can be kind of like an unknown thing sometimes, knowing when you're going to make money. Like, am I going to be able to pay the bills? And like, I've had a few times where I've quit a job where I made good money as a Honda technician to pursue music, and usually I've been able to make it work for about a year or sometimes less, and then I'd have to go back for whatever reason. The latest reason I had to go back was because I wasn't like I didn't start my LLC until just recently, and I regret that so much, because if I had done it years ago and was paying taxes, being 1099, I would have been able to take out a loan potentially for a house, and I wasn't able to do that, so I had to go back to a job, which I'm at right now, and start wrenching again. In order
Sorry, what technician did you say?
So I'm a Honda mechanic.
Oh, Honda, like the car or the bike?
Yep, the cars.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. You're a mechanic. That's
yeah,
really
man.
Cool.
So the last time I kind of quit, though, that's really when I like took it super seriously, and I treated it like a job. And I was doing that for 5 months. And every day I was, waking up in the morning, eating breakfast with the family, maybe having some coffee, and I would like basically just be making music all day until they got home. And I feel like that was such a good feeling, even when like there were times I just felt like it was extremely difficult to do. I kept doing it anyway, and I kept up this kind of like hard work mentality this whole time, and I cannot wait to get back into that. So basically, I think touring is going to allow me to hopefully not have to work a 9 to 5, so that I can have some guaranteed income and sort of be able to plan things out a little bit better.
Yeah. I'm curious about being a mechanic. How did you get into that? Like, how did you learn how to fix cars?
Yeah, man. So I became passionate about cars at kind of a young age, and got into Hondas just because it was affordable. I think my first car was like a 96 Honda Prelude. And I actually had one recently that was like a project car that I had modified and looked super cool. But I sold it recently. But yeah, it was kind of just like a hobby for the longest time. And I started to, I've worked a lot of shitty jobs, man, like all sorts of shitty jobs. And I just never really had one that I even like partially enjoyed until I started as a mechanic. And I thought that actually kind of worked out. And I was actually selling cars at the time at Honda, and I was terrible at it, man. Like, I could not fucking do the job, and I ended up having like a quarrel with like one of the managers, and they ended up firing me. And I talked to the general manager of service, and they were like, "Yeah, we could use a guy." And I was like, "Okay, like I've have some experience just doing basic maintenance and modifications on my own Hondas. Like, I'll give it a try." And this was in like 2015. And I've kind of, on and off been in and out of shops while, doing music at the same time, trying to make it work for, just since then, pretty much, if not before that. And, just with other jobs besides being a mechanic. And yeah, just this year, I was like really, really focused on music, treating it like a job, which some days sucked, man. Like, I'm sure you're aware, like, because this is your main thing. And yeah, some days are really hard, man. And you just got to push through that. I feel like almost, working a 9 to 5 is easier sometimes than continuing making music and treating music like a job. And
I used to find it hard, and I feel like it honestly gets easier. Like at this point, for me to grind out a 12-hour day on building a set or making a tune or whatever is nowhere near as hard as it used to be. But I do remember the days when like I didn't really feel like writing music, and I'd be like, oh, but I should, because like this and that, and I need a song for this, and I want to finish this album, and I want to have a new song to play live, and like all this shit. And there was a time, I think, where it was like kind of a pain in the ass, but I think I've done it for like almost 15 years straight now, of just all day every day. And it gets to a point where I'm just like, it's just what I do. It's like
hell
not
yeah,
even
man.
a problem anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that point someday, man. I feel
It's like a muscle, right? Like anything. I feel like create like your brain is a muscle, and the more you work at a specific thing, the better you get at it. Like if I read a book, right, I never exercise my reading a book muscle. So I'll read a book for like an hour, and I'll be like physically fucking tired from it. Like it'll like wear my brain down. But using Ableton, it just is not effort anymore. And I feel like you'll get to that point too. You just treat it like a job and do what you're doing, for sure.
Hell yeah, man. That's super nice. I'm definitely looking forward to getting to that point.
Yeah. Going back to the mechanic thing, that'll come out useful on tour, I think, because I assume if you're doing not one-offs, you're going to be doing these touring in a van or something, right?
Yeah, I would imagine probably promoters will be like driving us from one venue to the other. That's at least my experience in the past. Like having like a few shows near each other would just be, it's like the promoter's responsibility to kind of drive you from one place to the next. So I don't know if we'll actually have a van though. That would be pretty cool someday. That's definitely like something to aspire to.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you end up touring in a van, get a Honda, because it might break down, and then you'll be in a good position to at least know what maybe the problem is and how to get back on the road as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going back to setting up an LLC and stuff, I feel you, man. Like I didn't set up my LLC until I was until 2019, which is like a solid 10 years into my career, basically, of being a full-time musician. And then I set it up that year, and then got a really fucking nasty surprise in 2020 when I had to pay $100,000 in tax of like
Holy
back
shit.
pays. Yeah, it was fucked. And then, but it's good. Like, I mean, I figured it out, and now I have a house, which is awesome, like
Awesome.
5 years later or something. So yeah, it's definitely a smart idea to set that up as soon as possible, including anybody listening if they haven't done that and are trying to be a full-time musician. Because yeah, if you don't like, I think like a lot of musicians, they just sort of like, it's not that they don't care, but they just like don't ever like kind of look into shit, or don't really ever think that they're going to be at a position where they could possibly make enough money to buy a house or take out a loan or anything like this. But you never know, like it might get to that point, and when it does, you need to have like paperwork to show people, to be like, yeah, see, I have regular income, I've had regular income for X amount of years, the regular income is this much, therefore you can safely loan me X amount of money so I can buy a house. And it's, as a musician, it's extremely hard to get a bank to loan you like $500,000
I
because
can
they're like,
imagine.
wait, you do music? Like they just don't trust that industry at all. And why should they? I mean, it's like kind of a sketchy industry, to be honest. Like as far as, normalization and standardization of stuff goes, there is really like no union or like no sort of back end built into it like there is with, other industries like retail or something like that. But yeah, definitely good idea that you did that, and I really hope that works out for you and that you're able to buy a house.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I really appreciate that. We are actually we are buying one right now,
Oh,
but it's just yeah, it's what.
congrats.
Thank you, man. I've actually been a homeowner for like almost 5 years, and
Oh, wow.
it's been great. But it's definitely time for something a little bigger. We're definitely kind of struggling with the space, and it's like 750 square feet, man. So it's small, and
Yeah, if
but
you
it's
have a
better than
kid
no
and stuff.
house. Yeah, and
Where are you based at?
so I'm in the city of Minneapolis right now.
Oh, cool. Oh, that makes sense that you're into like 140 stuff. So where like Tony and are from. And
Yeah, man, they're out
actually,
here
I
as well.
just played there on the weekend. I played at the Poorhouse.
Dude, we actually play the same night in the cities.
Oh, did you play for 12th Planet?
No, no, I was actually like the headliner of like a smaller, more low key show at Rock Bar,
Oh,
which was
cool.
my first time playing there. And I guess were you guys were doing the Grillsmith thing, right? Or
Chris was.
oh
That's his
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. But you're
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you and him have a collab project though. It's Kill Bill, right?
Kill Bill. That's what we were doing there. Yeah.
Yeah, super dope. I
He
wanted
did
to
like
ask you,
Grill Smith in the morning, and then we did Kill Bill at night.
hell yeah. Is that like any sort of a reference to the Tarantino films?
Yeah, obviously, but like the reason why it came about is because there was this promoter named Max Kipperman who lived in Denver, and I don't think he's a promoter anymore. I think he studies law now, but at the time he was a promoter for electronic music shows. And he just had that idea. He's like, I want to do a Kill Bill show where it's like Chris and Bill, and then, they both play their own sets and then do like a back-to-back thing at the end of the night. And we did it one time and we didn't think we are going to do it ever again. We're like, yeah, that's a cool idea. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden we started getting like festival offers for it. They were like, we want Kill Bill. And we're like, it's not a thing. Like, well,
Right.
I guess it is now, but like, and then, yeah, we started getting offers for it. And now it's like, now it's a whole thing. It's its own business. It's a whole separate ass thing.
That's dope, man. Yeah. I know Max too. He's an awesome guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. How do you know Max?
From Submission, being on the
Yeah.
Submission agency.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. I don't know if is he still on there or,
I don't think so, man. I think he has kind of gone a different route.
yeah.
I don't really know what, but yeah, if you're saying he's studying law, that's really dope.
Yeah, I believe that's what he's doing. I think he lives in New York now or something. But yeah, anyway, so that's how it came about. It like wasn't even a planned thing. It just somehow happened.
That's sick.
Which in my opinion is like how all the coolest shit happens. It's like never really supposed you don't like plan it. It just kind of falls into place and then you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that before?
Yeah, like
Because
super
like
organically.
yeah, exactly. Like Chris and I both love each other's music, both respect each other a lot as producers. We work really well together, I think. Yeah, it just worked out well. But damn, yeah, there was a lot of shows happening in Minneapolis that night. Right before the Kill Bill show, I was hanging out with Virtual Riot and 12th Planet. And yeah, 12th Planet had a show like basically right next door to where I was playing at the Loft.
Okay.
I guess Minneapolis just has like a poppin' scene at the moment. It's like kind of turning into like Midwest Denver or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of electronic music out here for sure.
Do you know Slam Academy out there?
I do. Yes, I
Do you
know
know
JP very well.
JP? Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I taught for him for a while in Denver. They got they're a cool school. I like JP a lot. He's very organized. Have you ever like taught there or hung out there?
So I am on like the website as a private tutor, but unfortunately there was a few things that occurred that like didn't allow me to really do teaching. Even right now, it's hard for me to teach just having a 9 to 5, as I'm kind of like, getting this house and getting prepared for all that. So I try not to stress myself out too much when I'm working a 9 to 5, because I still want time for music and I need to make time for my son. But I am on the
Yeah.
website as a private instructor. And I have been there uh, more than several times, I would say. And I've met Mike Rat as well, who's a super dope dude. Um, Really great teacher. And a great producer as well. And JP makes some really cool shit too. I think the last thing I heard from him was like an IDM track that was really sick. So big up JP, big up Mike Rat, big up Slam Academy.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I agree with you. I think time management's really important. Like sometimes I want to do 10 things, but I have to like pick 2 of them because it's not very fulfilling to do 10 things 10% of the way. It's more fulfilling to do one thing 100% of the way. And yeah, I had to learn that one the hard way too, like over the years, starting like many projects and not really finishing any of them. And then eventually going like, all right, I'm just going to put all my time into like this one thing, like an album or like the website or something like that. And then doing that 100% until it's finished. It's definitely more rewarding, both financially and like internally, I think, to do that.
For
So you
sure.
definitely got to give yourself time and unfortunately make concessions on certain projects, which will always happen regardless of whether or not you're working. I think once you start to like get super into the business, I think there's always 100 million things that you could possibly do, and you can only really ever do one at a time properly.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's like just trying to multitask. It's damn near impossible.
Yeah, people who say they can do it, I think are kind of bullshitting. I think like yes, you can technically do multiple things at a time, but everything that you do, if you're doing it at once, gets worse.
Exactly. 100% agree.
Yeah, like it's possible, but it's not a good idea.
Right.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was really nice to chat with you for a bit. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you around on the road or something.
Yeah, man, it'd be great to meet up in person someday.
Fuck yeah. All right, man.
All
Cheers.
right. Peace, man.